Story number 1. Technical Edge, written by Alex146. It was called Survival of the Fittest. At least, that's what humanity called it. There are many species, each with a unique term to describe the same thing. However, unlike most intelligent beings capable of space travel, to the Ancroins, it wasn't just a term to describe a process of natural selection, but instead, it was a foreign policy. There have been many attempts by nations to resist the attacks by the Ancroin people, but for all their efforts, their sacrifices made, and their lives lost, there had never been a single successful defense against the Ancroins. As time passed, and as once great nations collapsed one by one, leaders of countless countries accepted that their fates were sealed as soon as they received a declaration of war. No one knew how or why the Ancroins first began their conquest to purge the galaxy of every other being. Those who knew the reason had long since been executed by the Emperor's infamous death squad, known for purging every last member of a species by any means possible. Humanity grew up and entered the galactic stage at this time. As Neil Armstrong delivered his famous speech on the surface of the moon, Ancroin infantry literally tore apart the appendages of defending Gulf forces on planet 4.5 light-years away. As the Perseverance rover and his drone friend landed on the red planet's dusty surface, the Ancroin Imperial battle fleet bombarded the last remaining planet still controlled by the Zumit, or Republic. When President Zachary Courier delivered a speech on the newly constructed Miami Interplanetary Spaceport as the world's first FTL-capable ship launched into orbit, no one in the galaxy took note of the fledgling species as empires turned to ashes. That was a mistake that would cause the Ancroins to beg for mercy at the feet of humanity. There was no astronomer on Earth who didn't note the craters, the ashes and smoke left behind as a result of the careless destruction of Ancroins and their crusade to purge the galaxy of any life form that wasn't theirs. Not when humanity was sending uncrewed ships to chart the galaxy. When they did, humanity saw what may be to come. Nations across Earth sent unmanned probes across the galaxy to find and retrieve any objects of note. The wreckage of battles centuries ago, the weapons left on planets that were bombed to oblivion, materials on wrecked structures, and everything else scattered in other star systems around the Sol system. Humanity's brightest worked on reverse engineering as much as possible, as soon as possible. One could perhaps call it the greatest research initiative in history. Mere decades later, humanity marveled at what they had created. That was when they noticed. It was a short and direct message, beamed by radio waves and delivered 30 years after the Ancroins sent the message. War was coming, but only one side was prepared for what was to come. At the CIA space station orbiting Europa, men and women were listening very closely to all activity within 20 light-years, or on average of 35 jumps between the furthest range at which the base could pick up a signal at Earth. It turns out FTL jumps leave a vast and noticeable mark on their surroundings, especially when you know what you're looking for. A dot was shown on the monitor. A ship had jumped in range of the base's detectors, and from now on, its every step was being monitored. Soon, what was one single dot turned into 2, then 5, then an entire fleet of 100 ships could be seen approaching Earth. An operator recorded this new movement and passed it on to a very special building in Langley, 628.3 million kilometers away. The message from Europa was broadcast loud and clear to every military around the world. They had 5 months to prepare, and not a second would be wasted. In Japan, the Japan Space Self-Defense Force brand new Hakuin-class cruisers lifted off from a mountain base in an undisclosed location, joined by South Korean Gyeongsang-class fighters, and headed off to the edge of the solar system. U.S. Space Force carriers, destroyers, and a dozen auxiliary and support ships changed courses from their regular patrols. The British battleship HMS Sol powered up her Gauss cannons and turned away from the Royal Space Force spaceports. Humanity will make sure that this was a battle the enemy would never forget. Imperial Grand Admiral Arnholtz stood on the bridge of the First Fleet's dreadnought. Its interiors are now centuries old, yet its exterior stayed sparkling clean. If one were to inspect it from a distance, they might mistake the ships for a brand new one that had been started her maiden voyage. Never in all her years has she ever sustained any battle damage, yet an impending feeling of doom plagued the back of Arnholtz's mind. Maybe he should sleep more often instead of partying with the crew every night. The jump towards, if you recalled correctly, the system of Sol went out without a hitch. Corvettes at the front powered up their blink engines and were quickly followed by the rest of the fleet. A human request for the fleet's surrender was broadcast by a radio wave and was ridiculed before being dismissed by Arnholtz. Then it happened all at once. Hulkins was on board one of the corvettes of the First Fleet. Like many other soldiers, he had done pretty well for themselves by the way of looting civilians once they landed on the planets. And this single-planet civilization inhabited by bipedal mammals with almost no physical bodily strength compared to themselves would have been easy money for everyone involved. At least, that's how it should have been. He had not noticed his hull heating up by an entire fleet of ships thousands of kilometers away, blasting focused gamma rays at every corvette that could be seen. When he did notice, however, a small hole had already penetrated the cabin. Hulkins scrambled to send a message to command, but it was already been too late. Seconds later, the cabin was met with a depressurized silence. The communications crew were panicking. 58 of the 60 corvettes had suddenly lost contact with the dreadnought. The ships didn't fall off the communication systems. It was that no one responded to any message. But before anyone could have figured it out, hundreds of Gauss cannons, railguns, missile launchers, autocannons, and artillery fired their payload towards the First Fleet, instantly detonating almost every ship that was left. Arnholtz desperately shouted for every ship to attack the enemy. But it was far too late before he realized that there were no more ships to respond to his command. To save himself, the Admiral ordered his dreadnought to turn back and fired up the blink engine. But the aging sub-FTL thrusters were nowhere near the capabilities of what humanity had to offer. A single missile hit its mark on the dreadnought's nuclear engines. The explosion lit up the emptiness of space. The Incroyans had never lost before. The Admiral of the German Space Force wondered how their Emperor must be feeling right now. But now is not the time to speculate. A war has still yet to be won. End of story.